You got to make the Chinese feel like they are a worthy part of the world community, and you got to help them join the WTO and all the things they want to do.
No, they've already joined.
I know they've joined, but you've got to make sure that they're treated fairly.
You've got to make sure that they understand membership requires certain obligations. Right. And the obligations start with responsibility.
But you also say about the United States, it has to realize that most problems need an American participation in order to be solved.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you and I had a conversation once about a whole range of leaders, and you said to me the man that you most admired of all the people you'd ever met was Deng Xiaoping.
Yeah.
That's what you told me.
Yeah.
Deng Xiaoping admired you too because he sent Chinese, 30, 40,000 of them, to Singapore to figure out what you were doing. Am I right?
Yes.
What was it you were doing that he wanted to see?
He was astonished when he came for the first time in 1978 to tell us to prevent Vietnam from invading Cambodia because they're doing it on behalf of the Russians. Then he found a Singapore which was contrary to what he was given in his brief.
Yes.
He found a prosperous, orderly society, everybody owning their own homes and with a job. So I said, how did you get there? I said, well, we educated our people, and look at all these companies, Americans, Japanese, Europeans. They bring technology, they train our people, we learn how to do things. And because we're cheaper, after a while we become general managers and company managing directors. And we learn how to do that, and we become suppliers to them. So he said, oh, you made use of capitalism to build a more egalitarian society. Everybody owns their own home. I will do the same.
And he did?
He did. He did. He went back and declared 12 special economic zones. Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Dalian, and so on. All the coastal cities, and it succeeded.
So he was the greatest man you ever met because he understood, because of the results. He changed the nation, and therefore...
He's a member of the old guard. He fought in the Long March.
Right.
He chased the KMT out across the Yangtze. He led the...
He was a victim of the Cultural Revolution.
Yes, but he was realistic. He knew the system was not working. He knew that they were going to end up down in a deep hole. And he decided, against all the advice of his fellow old guards, that we would change course.
And he had the brains and the power to pull it off.
Yes. And when they tried to stop him in 1992 from going too fast, he went down to Shenzhen and said, learn from all countries in the world, and most of all, learn from Singapore. The order is good, and they are a very prosperous society.
You've never had a moment that you thought Singapore was too authoritative, have you? Not one moment.
My job is to get the place going and give everybody a decent life and a decent education. And we're now the best educated people in the whole of East Asia. Our universities, we've got 4 universities, 4th one coming up.
So the end justifies the means, whatever it might be.
No, it's not. The ends were laudable. Everybody wants the same ends. Everybody wants good education, good health.
A good life, and their children do better than they did.
The means, I had the consent and support of the population. If they opposed me, and they did not cooperate, it wouldn't have worked.
You were in control of everything.
No.
Yes, you were. You know that.
But the numbers of people who were opposing me, including the communists in the very early days, was endless. Yeah.
Brings me to President Obama.
Yes.
What are your observations about him?
He's a very great and eloquent man who is very persuasive, and he's very able, and he's appointed very able people into his all key positions. And what impressed me most was that he's prepared to appoint people with opposing different minds. For instance, on this economic team, Larry Summers and Paul Volcker. And they're both very strong-minded people.
Well, Larry Summers has much more influence than Paul Volcker.
Yeah, but whatever it is, he's got to make the final judgment.
So he wants to listen to smart people who have different views. That's one thing you admire.
Yeah.
What would you want to ask him? What would you want to know about him?
Well, two things. First, that the 21st century will be a contest for supremacy in the Pacific, because that's where the growth will be. That's where the bulk of the economic strength of the globe will come from. Now, if you do not hold your ground in the Pacific, you cannot be a world leader. The world leader must hold his ground in the Pacific. That's number one. Number two, to hold that ground in the Pacific, you must not let your fiscal deficits and your dollar come to grief. If it comes to grief in the short term, and there's a run on the dollar for whatever reason, because your deficits are too big, and the financial community, the bankers and all the hedge funds and everybody come to a conclusion that you're not going to tackle these deficits, and they begin to move their assets out, that's real trouble.
And there is a risk of that perception today.
Absolutely. Yes. And Ben Bernanke knows that. And he's got somehow or the other to clean up and soak up the liquidity. But if he does it too soon, you get into another recession. But you cannot build up enormous deficits that allows all the... and do nothing about it, and people say, oh, well, this is hopeless.
Yeah. There's always a treasury, or there's always a Federal Reserve, they'll make more money.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
They just print more money.
They will print more money, exactly. Yeah. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So deficits, the looming deficit of the United States is what worries you the most, because it will strike at the heart of the U.S. global leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's what happened, right? That's why we are in this recession, global recession.
After Afghanistan and then Iraq, questions were raised about America's credibility, its respect in the world.
Yeah.
It went down, correct? Or not? You never bought it?
No, it didn't go down. I think people were roughed up, by saying, you're either with me or you're against me.
Yeah.
And we don't need you. We'll go it alone. You do need them. You cannot go it alone. And all that ruffled everybody up. That was not necessary. But it's happened, and it's water under the bridge.
And the President Obama is taking care of that in terms of the way he's reached out.
That's all right. But now he's got to prove by his actions that he can really implement this new policy of togetherness.
That's one thing. But it seems to me you are saying that the most important question people have about America, is its leadership, and the most important thing they have about America's leadership is its economic leadership. Can it take care of its own house? Because China is growing at 8% in the second half of 2009, and it looks better and better as it goes out.
No. The Chinese economy is nothing compared to the American economy.
Because the base is different.
Once you're stabilized. Right. But what the world wants to know, or what the thinking part of the banking and financial world wants to know, is that the Americans, the administration and the Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, have the will to take tough measures to put this right, even if it's not going to be done overnight, but it is moving in that direction. It was going to put it right.
Okay, how do they do that?
You've created all these needs. I mean, you take health care. It's not going to be done at the same price, surely. I mean, you're covering 40 million extra people. So where's the money coming from? Now, if the world sees that you're not making any provision for that, you're not letting it go, and it says, wow, this looks as if the elected leaders have lost their will to confront the people with the truth.
Is it more the Congress than the president?
Both.